Fabulous Tales and Fables ASAP by Owen T. Duggan. Story 5. Good Landlord, Bad Tenants. The second last part. His face was hard. His hand was trembling. In anger, not in fear. The horse became panicky under his touch, so that one of the men had to lead it away. The tired animal would sit out this battle. Over the rise in the terrain they strode, some mercenaries picking up pace, some porting siege ladders, one group jogging along as a block, with arrows ready to draw and shoot upon any threat without hesitation. Though their clothing was rough and random, their discipline showed in their actions as coordinated squads. One squad was mostly women. The force as a whole acted with one purpose. They reached the wall. No need to breach it, which some rams and iron bars might achieve, given time. They simply went over. Their 3 ladders, long poles with plank steps, were placed against the wall and held in place while archers climbed. More archer teams on the ground sniped at the lookout windows and slits and whomever or whatever was moving inside. Too dark to see what was sheltered within. Archers found perches upon the wall, one by one, and fired as soon as they spotted the 2 wolves slinking amid the overgrowth and barrels near the press for grapes. The press, a raised rectangular platform with canopy, was like a tiny open-air temple in the wide yard, but it offered no refuge to the wolves, which were shown 0 mercy and given 0 chance to attack. They were killed by arrows coming at them from several angles. One ladder was soon up and over and set on the inside ground. A team rushed down, dashed across the yard to the heavy door. They worked the bars and bolts. They got it open. As the door swung inwards, wide, a squad of archers poured into the yard. Hardly with time enough to gain a stance and survey the place, a surprise befell them. One huge tagger, then a second tagger, charged. They had exited unscathed from the safe cover of their lookouts, and they were bounding down the open lookout steps, straight at the mercenaries. The squad of bow women were entering next, followed by others. In the fierce congestion, giant striped cats, that most of the warriors had never seen before, inflicted gashes, slashes, and bites. Yells of defiance matched cries of pain. Claws and teeth found flesh. Arrowheads found targets, with some by accident drawing blood from humans, and the frantic task of slaying beasts played out until the taggers slowed and groaned, wearing a feather-fletched overcoat of arrow shafts. They died as giant porcupines. The custom silk tunic was inside. "Where is he?" said the landlord, shaking a double-edged straight sword. "The man he was after would pay in pain." "Looking for me?" said a man in a strange hat that was shaggy like a lion's mane. He was leaning out an upper window, in the master residence this time. "Grr, come and get it!" As he said this, one arrow whizzed past his hat, and another arrow impaled his trapezius muscle above his collarbone. He let out no cry of pain, but ducked out of sight. Archers on the walls could not score another hit. Up and into the residence went a pair of men, and the landlord, with his sword braced firmly before him. Indoors, the attacker lunged, he with a pair of sabers drawn and flipped backwards, scraping the air like claws. He wore clothing like a lion costume, and in a moment he also wore, in his chest, 2 arrows. Stumbling forward, the lion man reached the landlord, who swung his sword in an arc that knocked the sabers free without drawing blood. The man who had once been a raider, the lone survivor of his band, and whose hands had been lion paws caused by an enchantment, now lay prone as one more silent dead man at the landlord's feet. At no point had he demonstrated pain or remorse. An archer, looking down at the costumed corpse, commented, "He must have dressed that way to control those striped lions he was keeping." The other agile bowman added, "Yeah, and it wasn't war dogs he had, like we thought. It was a pack of wolves." He was referring to a report from their scouts the previous night. While the mercenary force had camped a cautious distance away, a scouting party had crept in close to the vineyard and, hearing canines, had estimated that the new tenants were breeding and training war dogs for some reason. "Get me to the roof on one of those siege poles," said the lord of the estate, satisfied that there was no further threat. The mercenaries had checked the entire estate in a few minutes, encountering neither hostiles nor hostages. If they had, they would have informed him of either. They were professionals, which also meant they weren't cheap. Climbing with some discomfort, he got himself to the roof. There was no exotic bird there. It was gone. Only a few feathers, plumes, and some straw remained. "They got you too?" he wondered. He surveyed the wide yard below. Clearly no maintenance at all had been done. Vines were overgrown in some spots, and dried out elsewhere. Trash was everywhere. It was a dump. It stank. Even up high it stank. His look inside the master residence over which he stood was enough to know that no kind of order, craft, or design had been at work. The only care seemed to be for well water and for the next meal. None of the livestock lived. They were now scattered bones, among scattered heaps of feces. This was not a human settlement. It was an animal den, a pit of vipers, truly a demon lair. "Bones," he said, and he was seized with panic. His heart raced. He descended. Back on solid ground, he searched among the bones, with effort identifying what the bones had been. A mule's rib cage, a cow's head. Stepping around a dead wolf, he peered into the press, the rectangular, raised-edged platform with the canopy. Judging from the fur sheddings, a tiger had made of it a bed. There were more bones, not those of an animal. There was a human skull, shattered, cracked open, and black hair. Too weak to stand, he clutched the platform edge to keep from collapsing. It was the ledge of a precipice down which he was about to drop into a pit. He wept. She with her raven-black hair, ever diligent, a daughter of loyal messengers, did not deserve this. So soon to shift from daughterly to womanly, so steady on her feet, standing like a warrior ready to fight, wearing the drab clothing of a servant on yet another errand, leaving the city one last time on that day when she ought to have stayed. The middle-aged man in the fine silk tunic mumbled through his tears, "I should have spared no expense, and hired the archers at the first sign of trouble." He stumbled to a barrel, empty, and maneuvered it next to the press. With effort he pulled his weight up and over the raised edge curb and down onto the pressing floor. On his knees before the human skull, he imagined her voice, not servile, but bold. "I could have become your wife, the mother of your child." He was absent from the world for a few minutes. Ever so slowly accepting that he would have to communicate with the mercenaries and decide what to do about any number of things. They were waiting. He went to them. No archer was dead today, that was one thing. And with good care and luck, none of the wounded would die while being treated. 2 tigers and 5 wolves, plus the head tenant in a lion suit, that put the tally of hostile dead at 8. That was a strange thing. It was the same count as the number of worker tenants, 8. Yet there was no sign of the other 7. It came down to terms of payment. For this, some new options emerged. Stay as long as you like, the landlord offered their board of masters. Part of the new offer was that the landlord would broker a long-term contract between the mercenaries and the city's lord and court to keep the roads of the area safe for travelers and trade. As a chartered order of archers, they would base themselves at the vineyard and develop it for their purposes as they saw fit. They could craft arrow shafts here, practice their aim, hunt for deer, whatever they liked. The manager of the mercenary archers posed a question. "You want us to send you wine sometimes?" he said. It was a relevant question. The vines would be fine even after neglect. Vines could even come through all the better after harsh treatment. Sometimes so could people. Yes, if you like, send me wine," said the landlord finally. "It'll be up to you." He gathered himself to depart. "Stay at least till morning." "I'm not staying," he said. "I built this press for wine-making. All I pressed from it is blood. I'm leaving. The place shall be yours." "You'll want the horse," the head archer said, and he called to a man in the yard. "Fletcher, ready the horse to ride." The horse had been led in earlier, carrying the crossbow and lanceman slain by the wolf. No horse. Keep it here. I want to walk."